The nation of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, "Sinfan min ummati laysa lahuma fil Islami nasib, al-qadariyah wal-murji'ah." Two groups from my nation have no share in Islam. That means they're not Muslims. Al-Qadariyah and Al-Murji'ah. The Qadariyah, the destiny deniers, those who deny destiny, and Al-Murji'ah, those who believe that no Muslim will be punished in the afterlife. Both of those groups are not Muslims. This hadith is narrated by Al-Tabari in Tahdhib al-Athar. So we produced this hadith because we want to talk about the nation of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and this hadith mentions the ummah, the nation of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and this hadith also has in it a takfir, deeming some people as not Muslims. In particular, some people who affiliate with Islam but they're not Muslims. This hadith has takfir in it. Because he said, لَيْسَ لَهُمَا فِي الْإِسْلَامِ نَصِيب. They don't have in Islam any share. Hence the term ummah, the nation of Muhammad, does not only refer to Muslims. It could have two meanings. When you say the ummah, the nation of Muhammad, it has two meanings. The first is the ummah, the nation of the call. Those to whom the Prophet was sent, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and that's every human and every race from his time and those who come after him until the end of the world, and all of the genies. That is what is meant in the aforementioned hadith. That's what's meant by ummah. Everyone to whom the call of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam applies. So we're saying then, sometimes you can say the nation of Muhammad and it includes kafirs. That is what is meant in the aforementioned hadith, because those groups are from his nation, yet they have no share in Islam. The second is the ummah, the nation of response, ummatul ijabah. So the first one is ummatul da'wah, the ummah of da'wah, the nation of the call, or the nation of the invitation. Or maybe there's even a nicer one. And the second one is ummatul ijabah, the nation of response, the people who responded to his call, alayhi salatu wassalam, and they embraced Islam. So that means sometimes you say the nation of Muhammad and you mean exclusively only the Muslims. They are those about whom Allah said in the Quran, كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس. You are the best nation sent out to the people. O nation of Muhammad, Muslim believers. This is evidence that this nation is the greatest of all nations. It has several merits over others. It is the largest of all Muslim nations. Yani, combined. The nation of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam is the largest nation of all prophets combined. If you combine the nations of all the prophets, the nation of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam is still several times larger. And therefore, they are the majority of the population of paradise, 2/3. So of all the Muslims, 2/3 of them in paradise will be from the nation of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And it is the last of the nations, the nation of the last prophet. And the prior nations used to believe in this nation of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Just like we believe in the prior nations and the prior prophets, those nations and prophets believed in the last prophet and the last nation, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And they knew that this is the greatest nation. They knew that Muhammad is the greatest of the prophets, or that the last prophet is the greatest of the prophets, and that the last nation is the greatest of the nations. And this nation is the first to enter paradise. And it has the most scholars in number and the most knowledgeable scholars. It is said that the scholars of the nation of Muhammad are like the prophets of the children of Israel. I found this hadith very beneficial. Very beneficial. MashaAllah. There's something in that hadith for someone who understands. It also has the most saints and the holiest. The most saints in number and the holiest saints. Yani, you want to say holy man, the holiest of holy men are in the nation of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. You know, some people don't believe in holy men and holy women. Subhanallah wa bihamdi. It is also, this nation, specified with al-ghurr al-muhajjalin. Footnote. Al-ghurr is in reference to al-ghurrah, which is the white spot on the forehead of the horse. You got a horse with a white spot on his forehead. And the tahjil is the whiteness of the lower legs of the horse. And that's nice, yani. Beautiful horse. Nice, noble creature. If the nation of Muhammad washed beyond the obligatory parts in the wudu, these parts that are more than what is obligatory will be illuminated on Judgment Day. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam will know them, the members of his nation, by that sign on that day. Which is that it means the Muslims who follow Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and they made wudu beyond the obligatory amount, then on Judgment Day, the extra parts that they washed will be glowing. So it means they're going to have light around their faces. And they're going to have light over their elbows. And they're going to have light over their ankles. That's for the nation of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Muslim narrated, قالوا يا رسول الله أتعرفنا يومئذ. They said, "O Messenger of Allah, will you recognize us on that day?" قال نعم. He said, "Yes. لكم سيما ليست لأحد من الأمم." You have a sign that no other nation shall have. تريدون علي غرا محجلين من أثر الوضوء. You will come to me with illuminated faces and illuminated upper arms and lower legs from the effect of wudu, or from the trace of wudu. The scholars have agreed that everything that leads to considering the nation at large as misguided is blasphemous. Yani, it's blasphemy. Anything that leads to, that means implies. Leads to means implies. And implies means not said blatantly. So even without being said blatantly, everything that leads to considering the nation at large misguided is blasphemous. Examples are like hating all the companions or condemning all the scholars. These two cases, their implication is that the nation at large is misguided, hating all companions or condemning all scholars. Our Shaykh said in the summary that it is apostasy to say, "May Allah's damn be upon every religious scholar." So the Shaykh said, it's apostasy to say, "May Allah's damn be upon every religious scholar." However, if one did not mean all of the religious scholars, but meant those of one's time, merely meant those of one's time, and there was an associating matter, context, which indicates this meaning, yani, this limited meaning, it's not as broad as the words mean by themselves. He said words that are so broad, but he said them in a context that the broadness that those words carry is not intended. So if he did not mean all of the religious scholars without exception, but merely he meant those of his own time or his own area, for example, and there was an associating matter, that means there was a context which indicates this limited meaning. The limited meaning that's not what the words by themselves mean. Because of their corrupt condition, he said that then one did not blaspheme. One's words, however, are not clear of sin. Yani still haram to say, may Allah's dam be upon every religious scholar, under context. Still going to be sinful statements with a context, but he didn't blaspheme. This outstanding reference, it has in it all of the sheikh's examples of apostasy from the summary, and all of the examples of apostasy from as-siratul mustaqim. And we didn't yet get to the chapter of blasphemy. We're closing in on it. But because of attempting to put all the examples that are in the summary and in as-siratul mustaqim inside this reference book, then this one won't be repeated. This quote here won't be repeated. It's considered as documented in the book as one of the Sheikh's examples, even if it's outside of the chapter of blasphemy. So, if one meant the scholars of his time, or a certain group of scholars, or the scholars of his area, because he knew of no good in them, he could say because he knew no good in them, and there was an indication, some context that proved his specification, that he's actually speaking about some people specifically, but his words by themselves don't reflect that, then he does not blaspheme, or else he does. If he doesn't have a context, he will blaspheme for those words, without an intention to blaspheme. And whoever does not judge him as a blasphemer blasphemes. Wa subhanallahi wa bihamdihi. Some people, they don't like the rules of blasphemy. It's because they don't mind blasphemy. They don't mind blasphemy. It doesn't bother them. Ahlus sunnati wal jama'ah, the people of the prophetic way and of the majority. So, the people of the prophetic way and the majority. Ahlus sunnati wal jama'ah. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he counts this group as a firqah. So this is one firqah out of other firaq. So if I translate a word that maybe everyone will accept, then I'd say group. Ahlus Sunnah is a group amongst the other groups, firqah. But if I say a word that not all the people accept, I would say Ahlus Sunnah is a sect amongst the other sects, firqa min al-firaq. Because some of the people, they say Ahlus Sunnah is not a sect, so they understand from the word sect that it means deviant. If it doesn't have to mean deviant, and it can mean a party or a group that's just not another one, then they would be a sect too also. The proper belief is that of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his companions, and their students. May Allah accept all their good deeds. Ameen. Hakada. That's base right there. This is the proper belief, but what's the proof for the proper belief? The actual evidence is going to be when it comes to an attribute of Allah Ta'ala or a name of Allah, it's going to be an ayah from the Quran or an authentic hadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. For an attribute of Allah or a name of Allah, the evidence is going to be an ayah from the Quran or an authentic hadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. Not a statement of a companion, not a statement of a tabi'i. The statement doesn't mean that their words are evidence in the Aqidah for all matters. The evidence in the first place is the Quran and the Sunnah and the consensus. We don't have to say qiyas here. Qiyas is in fiqh. Tahawi didn't mention qiyas here. The Quran and the Sunnah and the ijma', that's the evidence for the religion. But the proper belief is that of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his companions and their students. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam clarified the correct belief for his companions. And that is why they never had a fundamental disagreement in the belief. Never. But why did we put a qualifier here? Fundamental. If there's a qualifier, there should be a reason for it. Yes. What's contrary to being fundamental? What's contrary to being fundamental is being basically, let's say, advanced. Contrary to being fundamental is being advanced. Secondary. Secondary, not fundamental. So in fundamental matters, they didn't have any disagreement in the belief. But in some advanced cases, or if you want secondary cases, they have some difference. The Sahaba, like, did the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam see his Lord on the night of Al-Isra wal-Mi'raj or not? There are words narrated from the companions that can be used to argue that they did indeed have some difference here. But that's not fundamental, because in order for them to disagree about this, it's because they already agreed that Allah can be seen. They already agreed that God can be seen. That's the fundamental there. So they didn't disagree about the fundamental. The companions never disagreed about the fundamental beliefs. The Prophet ﷺ, he clarified the aqidah for them very well. And he gave priority to that aqidah, the creed. At the time of the Prophet ﷺ, the people of the Prophetic Way were, let's say, merely called Al-Jama'ah. At the time of the Prophet ﷺ, the people of the Prophetic Way were merely called the Jama'ah. Very important here, because that means they had a name. At-Tirmidhi narrated that Umar ibn al-Khattab said that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, فَمَنْ كَانَ يُرِيدُ بُحْبُوحَةَ الْجَنَّةِ فَلْيَلْزَمِ الْجَمَاعَةِ. Whoever wants the luxuries of the garden, let him stick to the belief of the Jama'ah. Instead of breaking up. How's the voice? How's the voice? How's the voice? How's the voice? Good voice, inshallah.
Good voice.
Whoever wants the luxuries of the garden, let him stick to the belief of the Jama'ah. فَلْيَلْزَمِ الْجَمَاعَةِ. Let him adhere to the Jama'ah. We have here the belief of the Jama'ah. Why the belief? Because it's not meant here that he has to follow one of the madhabs of fiqh over the other. All those madhabs of fiqh are bound together by something. There's something common that unifies them, which is the right creed. This At-Tirmidhi said that this hadith is Hasan Sahih hadith. I don't want to read this note right now. This hadith is strong enough to be evidence in the creed. The name was eventually updated to Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Imam At-Tahawi said, وَنَتْبَعُ السُنَّةَ وَالْجَمَاعَةِ. We follow the Sunnah and the Jama'ah. And also, what did At-Tahawi say? هذا ذكر بيان عقيدة أهل السنة والجماعة. This is a documentation of clarifying the creed of Ahlus Sunnati wal Jama'ah. He used that entire name. That's at the beginning of his Aqidah, and he says this statement in there also. وَنَتْبَعُ السُنَّةَ وَالْجَمَاعَةِ. We follow the Sunnah and the Jama'ah. The people of the Sunnah and the Jama'ah are those who believe in the creed of the companions and the Tabi'un. Ahlus Sunnati wal Jama'ah, that's who they are. They are the people who have the creed of the Sahaba and the Tabi'un. Ahlus Sunnati wal Jama'ah believes that their creed is identical to the creed of the Sahaba and the Tabi'un. Does not diverge from their creed at all. They just had more knowledge. Not that they had different creed. The Wahhabis, they think that about themselves too. That's why they call themselves the Salafis. So they believe that they believe identically to the companions in the Tabi'un. That's falsehood. That's a big part of where our discussion is with the Wahhabis. Because the case of the Wahhabis is that they are amongst the deviant groups who call themselves Ahlus Sunnati wal Jama'ah. That doesn't always happen. The Shiites, they don't call themselves Ahlus Sunnati wal Jama'ah. They call themselves Shiites, actually. And the Ahmadiyya too. They call themselves the Ahmadiyya. They don't say, we are Ahlus Sunnati wal Jama'ah. And in general terms, the scholars, they did say that the deviant groups, they don't call themselves Ahlus Sunnati wal Jama'ah. And they do call the Sunnis Ahlus Sunnati wal Jama'ah. Yani, they use their name for them. But the Wahhabis are not there. The Wahhabis are in another camp. A camp of deviants who call themselves Ahlus Sunnati wal Jama'ah. Those are not many. So the people of the Sunnah and the Jama'ah are those who believe in the creed of the companions, the Tabi'un, yani the successors of the companions, and whoever followed them in goodness. They believe in the basics of the creed, which are the 6 fundamentals mentioned in the hadith. أن تؤمن بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله واليوم الآخر وتؤمن بالقدر خيره وشره. Iman, faith, is to believe in Allah, His angels, His books, His messengers, the last day, and to believe in the qadar, destiny, its good and its evil. So that's the fundamental creed of the people of the prophetic way. And that's the religion of all the prophets, to believe in God, and to believe in angels, and to believe in books, and to believe in prophets, and to believe in Judgment Day, and to believe in destiny, its good and its evil. And if you didn't know, the angels and the books are mentioned before the messengers in this hadith. Although the messengers are the greatest creations, they are greater than the angels, but the angels are mentioned before the messengers. Because the angels, they get the revelation from Allah, and they bring the books to the messengers. So those people are called Ahlus Sunnah, the people of the prophetic way. The Sunnah is the prophetic way. Sunnah means way, tariqah. So here it is the prophetic way. Because they are upon the Sunnah of the Messenger of Allah, the way of the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Ahlus Sunnah is the saved and successful sect. So, I'm taking the meaning that word sect works there. But you don't have to use it if you don't want to use it. The group whose scholars have differed about the offshoots of the religious laws in a way that does not necessitate disowning each other or charging one another with blasphemy or heresy. So basically, what I'm saying is, Ahlus Sunnah is a firqa amongst the firaq. So if we're going to translate firaq as sects for all the deviant groups, well, Ahlus Sunnah is a firqa. It's one of the firaq. So then If the translation goes consistent, you'd say it's a sect also. But means here, though, that they are not deviant sect. They are a guided group. They are the group whose scholars have differed about the offshoots of the religious laws, not the fundamental creeds. They differed about the offshoots of the religious laws in a way that does not necessitate disowning each other. Yani, in a way that actually is how the religion was revealed to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Meaning, you need to understand that these various madhabs, this is the intended result of how the religion was revealed to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Not to have one madhab, but to accommodate madhabs, schools of law. One creed and numerous valid schools of law. Those valid schools of law, they're still what binds them together, so that none of them are deviated, even if they differed in some judgments. How do we know this? Because this is what came from the Sahaba. This was the way the Sahaba were practicing the religion, actually. They had madhabs. Whether some of them, the Sahaba, they had madhabs as mujtahids. Whether they taught their madhabs to others or they just used their madhab, their own ijtihad for themselves. Just because someone's a mujtahid doesn't mean that he must propagate his madhab. It's not a condition. But he still has one. So if someone understands this issue, then he knows then it means Abu Bakr had his own madhab, Umar, Uthman, Ali, Aisha, Ibn Abbas. So they had ijma', they had consensus amongst themselves, and they had ikhtilaf, they had some differences amongst each other in offshoot cases. And they taught the entire religion accurately to the next generation, the tabi'un, who had the same result, which is that they all had the same aqidah, and some of them reached high level of ijtihad in such a way that they had acceptable different schools of law, madhabs. Difference, though, between the successors and the companions is that all of the companions had the same creed. And as for the successors, and when I say successor here, I mean the next generation who's affiliated with Islam. So I'm using it in a broad sense here. The next generation directly after the Sahaba who's affiliated with Islam. Some of them deviated, very small percentage in comparison to the vast majority. So whereas the level of the Sahaba, none of them deviated in their creed. At the next level, some of them deviated, a very small minority. So we know about the stories of the Saba'iyyah, who were the precursors to the Shiites. We know about the emergence of the Khawarij at the time of Ali. Also the Saba'iyyah at the time of Ali. And we know about the emergence of the destiny deniers at the time of the last companions. These people with these divergent convictions were gross minority. But their likes didn't exist in the level of the companions. Rather, what did exist in the level of the companions? Hypocrisy. I'm not saying companions were hypocrites, I'm saying their level. Meaning of all the people affiliated with Islam at the time of the Sahaba, was there anyone affiliated with Islam who was deviated? There were actually. Who are they? They were the hypocrites. So who are they? That's what the interesting thing is. Being hypocrites means they had to keep their matter secret. which means they were not able to propagate any deviant creed or argue for any deviant creed. That's why we're able to say none of the Sahaba deviated, because there is no propagation of any conflicting or contrary creed from the level of the Sahaba. Anyone who dissented in their level had to keep his matter to himself. Then the next generation, there did come people who openly dissented with the conviction of the Muslims at large, not hiding their matter. So Ahlul Sunnah is the saved and successful sect, the group whose scholars have differed about the offshoots of the religious laws from the time of the Sahaba, in a way that does not necessitate disowning each other or charging one another with blasphemy or heresy. Meaning, Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah, they stayed unified despite their differences. This is unique also to this group of the people of the Prophetic Way. It is a unique trait of theirs that when they did differ, they did not disband. They stayed unified. Every other group, when they would differ with each other, they would disown each other and charge each other with blasphemy or heresy. So that's why the Shafi'is, they love the Malikis love the Hanafis, etc., love the Hanbalis. They love to meet each other and learn from each other and discuss their differences between each other. That's only for the Sunni Muslims, the people of the Prophetic Way. وَسُبْحَانَ اللَّهِ وَبِحَمْدِهِ